Hello and welcome to the web exclusive demo for our Festive Friends collection. Really lovely little collection this. Gorgeous birds, wonderful little tuck-in foliage as well. We're going to be creating something on a card front and then adding layers of glitter to it to give it a really, really frosty look. But before we dive in, shall we take a look at just some of the samples you could be using and creating with this collection? Take a look at this. This is going to be perfect for all your Christmas cards. I love the conversation between our robin at the top and our little wren at the bottom there. So cute, lovely little frame as well. Of course, think to your nested dies with the little footprints in because this is going to work so well with Festive Friends. The leaves, the tuck-ins of foliage, and then having that wonderful little sentiment with a bow to the center. Really lovely Christmassy feel to your card. What about changing it up and going for something more three-dimensional, like a little piece of sculpture maybe? Employ your construction acetate layer, your different logs and your berries here as well around to create this little scene, little festive birds here. Absolutely stunning. So let's have a look at this demonstration. In front of me, I've got about a 7 by 5.5 card blank. And onto that, I'm going to add just mats and layers and one of our scenes from Winter Wanderings collections. I'm adding these using finger lift tape, just so it's nice and flat, because we're going to add a lot of dimension to the top of the card itself. So just lining that mat layer up, removing the carrier sheet from our finger lift tape, and then going in, doing the same again on the top. I'm also going to stick this layer flat as well. As I've mentioned, we're going to have lots of decoupage in this card top design. So I really want to focus on that rather than lifting the background from the card at all itself. Again, as I mentioned, this little scene here that we're sticking on using finger lift tape, this is from our Winter Wanderings collection as well. You can find that online. So there we go. Here is our nice, simple card design. All of the design detail is coming from those die cuts in themselves. So as I always do, I have lots and lots of die cuts in front of me ready to go. I find it the easiest way to work, to have lots to choose from up here. I keep them in our storage wallets as well. It just keeps them nice and neat and safe. So what we're going to do is we're going to plot out a design, and then we're going to shape and we're going to add, and then I'm going to add that last layer, which is the all-important glitter. So I'd like both of the birds to feature. So we've got our little, looks almost like a fledgling little wren here, really, really gorgeous. Going to grab a couple of those because we're going to add decoupage layers, as I mentioned. And then our little plump robin as well, and he is such a little cutie, 3 of those. So placement-wise on the card, I'd like one lower down, one slightly to the top. And to achieve that, we need to build in a little bit of a world. So we can use things like the Yule log to give us height and structure. Because it's nested, we've got the choice of different sizes here as well, which makes it super, super easy to construct a card around a height that works for us. Beautiful texture on these as well. So you can already see, as soon as we put that log in place, everything then falls into perspective and it looks like that little robin is sitting on the log rather than floating in air. I'm going to grab out a couple of the branches and let's just go in with a couple of the logs as well. It might be that we add a couple of these just to the backdrop for added texture too. Back in my little pile, the rest of them go. To the foreground, let's employ one of the other designs, the sort of stumps here. And again, look how once we place it in, you're now getting that wonderful composition, the wonderful conversation between the two birds going on here, overlapping the tree stump and the Yule log there to add in detail too. Now we can go in with a couple of these, again, just for the added background, just for a little bit of texture as well. So I'm going to keep those out to one side. And for the rest of the card, we're going to fill this space not only with the texture of the logs, but also with the beautiful berries and foliage that we have here as well. So again, just grabbing a couple out. I'm not being too precious about which ones I'm selecting. It's just nice to have a little handful there and a handful of our smaller little leaves and things too. So now we've got everything ready to go. Let's begin sticking. So as I mentioned, I want lots of height in this and I want lots of dimension. Normally, when I'm shaping and creating things in this kind of format, you'll see me using pin flare glue gel. I won't be using glue gel for this demonstration because I want to show you in one demo how we can go from sticking and then adding the glue afterwards. So rather than having wet glue, which is obviously going to stick glitter absolutely everywhere, I'm going to use foam pads to lift everything. which means that gives me a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to adding in glitter afterwards. So it avoids the glitter sticking all over the card on the wet glue as it's drying. So foam pads for the initial layers here. I'm still shaping the die cuts that we've created. And we can bolster the centers of these by layering up our foam tape, our foam pads as well. So going in with one layer, then layering up. So I'm using a 1mm foam tape here just to give me more control over the depths of what we're adding. But that's now going to sit centrally like so. And then we can add in the same thing again along the little tree stump here too. So just focusing the majority of our tape just to the center to give it that lift. Because this isn't going to be glue, it's not going to be tacky and things like that. It gives us a little bit more wiggle room, as I say, when it comes to then using the glitter over the top. If this was glue, obviously all the glitter would fall behind and stick to the glue as well. If I was working at home, what I would do is work with Pinflair glue gel to give me that height and dimension. I'd let it then fully dry before I went to the final stage of adding the glitter as well. So that's just something to bear in mind. If you do like using Pinflair glue gel, do consider just letting this dry off. I'd say, you know, a good couple of hours should do it. And obviously Pinflair takes about 24 hours to cure fully. So again, because we're using the foam, we're using different heights. So a layer of 3 to the middle here, and then a layer of 1. And then let's go ahead and add in just a nice amount to round off this lovely robin's tummy as well. Just like so. Okay, so that gives us our focal points. That gives us our full story of our card. So it's a really great idea to come in and choose what your story is going to be, lay it out, have those sort of main features of your card set ready to go, and then we can start sticking. Okay, so let's go ahead and stick the trunk of the wood here. I'm going to grab some of my bookbinding glue just to create even more depth. The foam tape is obviously going to lift to the center, and then the bookbinding glue is going to stick flat. So again, just another way of creating that shape and roundness to your design. Sticking that down. And we're going to come over the top with the little trunk here, the little stump, just overlapping them slightly. And let's have a little bit more in the background here, a little bit more texture, so we can slip these behind. I'm going to trim these down. Of course, they are your die cuts once you cut them out. So do consider snipping into them to give you different heights, to give you different dimensions, a little bit of shaping. But this time, let's just go in with the bookbinding glue there as well, tucking that behind the stump and the tree, just to fill in any negative space. We're going to really go to town on layering these up. Another one of little stumps I think might look quite nice in the foreground. So this time around, I will just automatically reaching for my Pinflair then. And let's just layer up a couple more of the foam tapes here too. So just snipping them down and then sticking. It's quite a nice way of crafting this. I mean, if you do prefer using foam pads, you'll be very au fait with this kind of layering system of adding in height and dimension. And obviously consider where you've added, say, 3 to the layers below, you want to add a couple more to the layers above, so you've got clearance on the height of the design too. Okay, so I think that might be good for now. We can always come in and add further elements. Our little plump friend is going to sit there, but I think some backdrop of the berries is going to be perfect here. So let's just shape those. So again, anything we lay down, we're giving it a little bit of lift, we're giving it a little bit of shape. I'm going to just pop out any of the little cuts here just to make sure they're all open. And again, just lay them down prior to sticking to make sure we've got the right sort of positioning for them. Trim them down if we need to. Let's just come in a little bit further here and angle those. Let's go in with some red as well, because I think it's nice to really fill that space with lovely pops of colour here. Just poking out the fallaways as well, little excess bits, pops of colour. And even just adding in these berries, you know, that's giving you an instant amount of little colour in the background. It's giving you an instant amount of lift and texture. Again, just checking placement for our little birds here. I think we need some berries behind and in front of the logs too. But of course, let's come in with a few of the littler die cuts of these as well. So just looking to where they sit and where we can add in a little bit of detailing like so. Once we're happy with the placement, we can begin sticking. A little tip, it's always worth taking a photograph, perhaps on your mobile phone or something like that, of a composition you're happy with, because it's always handy to then come back in and have a little guide there as well. I'm actually going to snip into this one so I've got a little bit more control over how it's sitting, and that leaf will come into play later on. I just want to drop that down and make sure it's not coming too far over the edge of the card. What I'm aiming for with a design like this is something that we can still put through the post, so something whereby it's contained within the sides of the card itself. Using Pinflow bookbinding glue and my glue applicator, just going in with a little bit of glue and just in little anchor points. Again, we've shaped that so we don't want it to sit completely flat to the background, just a little bit of something to hold it in place. And of course we're going to have the birds over the top, so that will hold it in place further. Same thing with your other elements as well, just a little bit of glue just in areas along the branches where that's going to hold, and just coming in and sticking. Same thing again, we're happy if it escapes just over the edge of like the scenic paper there, but we don't want anything whereby it's coming right over the edge of the card for this design. Just coming in and filling in those little negative spaces with a little bit of texture from our die cuts, overlapping them, overlaying them. Of course, in nature, in real life, these things would be growing all together, so you do get that quality of overlapping. I love the red in this. I think that adds such a lovely lift against this backdrop of blue that we've been working with, and of course it really kind of ties in with the robin's little red breast there as well, which is gorgeous. Slipping that behind, overlapping, overlaying, just changing up the angle of how that's sitting too. Just holding until that grabs. I'm just looking to my other kind of tuck-ins and things like that. We've also got these one sort of branches of the pine that could come into play, something a little bit different there from the Yule logs. I think they might be fun to feature along the top maybe. Let's snip into these and see what we can do. Just taking our scissors, following the cut line details that have already been laid down, so getting those sort of pine needles, if you like, just around to release sections. And it could be that this could sit on top. That looks quite fun on our Yule log there, and then we could mirror that further down with a branch coming out as well. Just shaping everything as we go. A little bit of glue, lifting and tucking. I'm not going to stick that other piece of pine until we're happy with the placement of our robin there. Holding that in place. Okay, let's take a look to it. Oh, it wants to pop off. Let's just hold you down until you stick. My glue is being a little bit temperamental today, which is very unusual. Let's put a little bit more on. It might just because it's on a shinier surface. It needs a little bit more encouragement to stick. You'll notice whenever I'm crafting, I don't tend to use a lot of glue, just simply because I like the movement from having things loose. There we go, that should hold that. Now within the little tuck-ins and things, we do also have this wonderful quality of the sort of layered snow with the berries, the fallen berries in it as well. I think that's going to be fun to add to our Yule log, but again, a little bit of shaping to that. So let's grab our foam and add a few little cuts in there, just as a little bit of height on this. Take away that bit of carrier sheet that's got stuck underneath and trim down. You notice here I'm using foam tape as opposed to foam pads. Again, it's just personal choice, but I like having more control over the amount that I'm snipping and using. Okay, I think we're now at a point where we can introduce our birds and have them sat. And that gives us then a guide as to how much more detail for the tuck-ins and the foliage we would like to add. So just layering, so his tummy comes over the log a little bit to the side. Obviously he's got a nice little halo of berries behind him. And then nestling that robin down into that log as well. We're going to hide one of his feet behind the pine there too, so we can have that coming up over the edge. So a little bit of foam on the back of that too, just giving us a little bit of lift on here. It's looking really sweet. I wonder what little conversation those two little birds are having. And actually we have filmed a little conversation between them too. It's worth checking that little video out. You should be able to find it on our YouTube channel. Okay, so decoupage layers, anything whereby you want the prominence to feature on the card, you want those characters to really pop. At the moment, they're all at the same level as the background, as the berries, as the pine. It's well worth considering coming in and decoupaging these up. So all we need to do, the first layer for our little wren here, is snip away their feet, and again round them off. So I'm using the back of a ball poker tool. You can absolutely use a foam pad and ball tool if you prefer. I just like using my poker tool because it's always to hand. And then for a final layer, I think it'd be fun to come in and take a little bit of maybe the wing coming down here, again following the cut line details. See how the scissors just kind of hop around the design, just following the cut line details. And then around his little breast here, beautiful feathers on his chest and around, just to make a really nice feature out of his gorgeous little face. Very expressive little face this one is. So these, as I say, if I was working at home and had more of the luxury of time, I would tend to use pinflair glue gel to build, simply because it gives me a little bit of a point of difference of height. And I have more control. It gives you a more sort of organic look. But for this one, because I'm going to be using the glitter afterwards, the foam pads are going to be perfect for this. So again, notice we've layered 2 and then just the 1 to give you a difference in the roundness of our little birdie there. And then finally, let's trim down 1 like so for along the wing. And then trim this in half to create 2 little bits for his head there as well. We're going to repeat that same process for our robin. Just like so. You see how instantly now he's popping from the background. It's a lot more depth and dimension on him once we've layered him up. Same thing with our little robin. We're going to come in and trim his feet. Bless him. For his first layer. I think it's nice giving you sort of larger sizes of decoupage, so you're just trimming the feet and then having the rest of the bird there is a lot of fun because it gives him a really round full belly, which is lovely, lovely fluffy plumage on this little bird here. Trimming down just so he's got a nice round tummy, keeping that shape we've added with the back of the poke tool, and layering him, lifting that piece of pine and layering him like so, making sure he's level, and then coming in and trimming into this final little layer, going around that wonderful little red breast of his, really, really fluffy feathers, and around his wing line and out, just nipping around his tail there as well. So cute. Rounding that at the back of my poke tool. And let's just pop him down as a decoupage layer too. So again, giving you a little bit more of a feature of the birds as the main part of your card. Now you might look at this and think, okay, do you know what, I'm happy with that. And that would be absolutely fine. But for me, I'm going to add a tiny little bit more foliage just to draw in this kind of space I feel needs a little bit more, and this little space here and along the bottom of the card too. Again, not being too precious about which ones I use, but anything that's going to come in and add into that space, of course we can trim into them. And then using my glue applicator and my bookbinding glue just to come in and layer. It also means colours that you see in the birds are being drawn and repeated into the background here, like in this little tuck in too. Anywhere where I've laid down one, let's come in and repeat that, mirror that design somewhere else so it makes sense the story is continued. And for that one, we're just going to glue along the stem, or the branch, if you like, of this piece. Remember, when we're adding that lift, tucking that behind and layering that over the front. And we've still got a little space we need to fill here. Let's see if this one's going to fit in to give you that little brown sort of tan colour all the way around. Works quite nicely, so we can trim into this shape and add our glue. Just tucking that behind the little log in front. So again, you kind of drawing in these colours around the card itself. I do still feel we need something here, so let's look to perhaps my smaller tuck-ins. I might be able to snip into that and take just a section just to add in detail. So you've got this kind of triangle forming around the card where you've got repeat patterns in the design. Just pouring out a little bit more of my bookbinding glue, so I've got something to go at. Okay, let's just look for a second. Let's see if we've got any smaller little berries and things. Might work quite nicely. It's just texture, it's just added layers. Doesn't detract from the overall design of the card, just adds in that little bit of detailing as well. That looks quite sweet. So I'm just looking at this and thinking, okay, I've got my pine here, but I could do maybe just a little something on this edge. Let's look to the ones I've snipped away. Just a little feature. You see how by laying that down, you've now got that repeat on this side, so it just draws everything together. Let's trim into that and add that last little piece of pine. Again, shaping and gluing. Fills a little space just behind our little bird, continues the story around the whole of the card. Even that just little pop of green just draws that rest of the card together. I think that's quite sweet. Now, let's just have a little clear down and bring in what I like to refer to as the glitter station, which is quite exciting. So for that extra little bit of pizzazz, for that extra little bit of Christmassy feel to the card, it's always a great time to employ a little bit of glitter. I mean, it just makes me smile because it's so sparkly and it's so lovely. So we pour out our glitter here in our highlight into a nice tub, a nice container, which gives us something to go at. Contains the glitter. I say it contains, I did nearly drop this as I was coming into the studio today. But this just means we've got a little place where we can liberally pour our glitter, and it's all contained within one safe space. So when it comes to glitter, it's always a fabulous idea to use your bookbinding glue and your glue applicator, because you've got so much more control and you get into really, really tiny little areas. And think too where you might get that layer of frost. So it's going to be along the top edges of things. So things like picking out a little bit of detailing with our robin's wings here, like so. Just going to be so, so pretty. A little bit along the feather line there. Just dabbing in, we're not going too mad with the glue. Just giving you little areas, perhaps down the back of the tail as well. Now, it's always a good idea when we're working like this to consider doing it in stages, because you don't want your glue to start drying on you. But we have got a little bit of time with this, so just dabbing it on. So I'm going to work in sections on the card itself. Along the top edge of the leaves, for example, where the frost would sit, where it would gather. Or perhaps it's, the first snowfall, for example, just taking the tiniest amount on our glue applicator and running it along the top edge of things like the pine needles, coming in and sitting along the top edge of these little pine needles as well, just dabbing it along, drawing it along. We don't have to be too neat, we don't have to be too considered of where it goes, just keeping it along the top edge. And then look to the artwork. Here we've got another top edge of the pine needle, so it helps like define the artwork even further as well. So a little bit there. And then let's go along this branch too. And then we'll do our first pour for the glitter, I think. Just along the top. So I'm going to remember where I've got to. I'm going to grab, I've made it a fashion to scoop here, which is quite handy. And then holding the card down, downwards over the tray, just pouring where we've got our glue, okay? Once we're in a place where we've got enough glitter on there, give it a little bit of tap over the tray, and you see how you're then left with just glitter on the top edges there. That's just so cute. Obviously the glue will dry clear, so you're going to get an even more glittery effect from the glue once it has dried. But we can go in and just add the glue to the rest of this side of the card, for example, just along the tops of the leaves. You know, we've got snowfall here. Pick that snowfall out. Pick the snowfall out on the berries as well. Just little dots on those berries where the glitter would sit. And again, along the top line of the leaves, along the branches. Such a really relaxing way to craft this, because it just really gets you into thinking about the world you're creating here, the lovely glittery snowfall as well. A little bit more glitter on those areas there. And giving that tap over our glitter station. Where you've got sort of snow flurries and things, you can build up a little bit more, because obviously you've got, you know, you can go along the bottom edge with this, top edge, because all of this is snow, you can see from the artwork. And you can make it feel sort of fluffy and full by following the shadows and the highlights within the design itself. Pick that little bit of snow out as well. Pick this snow out. And the idea is sort of the sun is hitting this snow, this freshly fallen snow, and just glinting away off that wonderful glitter that we're just laying down. Berries, let's just pick a few of those out and have the glitter along the top edges of the branches here too. This one's going to be a little bit more sheltered because obviously we've got our little birds in front of it too. And then just along the background of here. Once we're happy, again doing it in sections so your glue doesn't dry too much. Layering it on with a little card scoop. It's just a little scoop that's been bent around into a scoop shape, and then tapping off any excess. Final little bit of the beautiful little wren here, going along his head, going along his back as well, like we did with the robin. Perhaps coming out a little bit into the decoupage layers as well, just to define those, and coming up his wing line too. Maybe he wants a little bit in this darker area. Maybe he's sort of plonked himself down. He's got a little bit of snow on his feathers. That's quite sweet. Just trailing along. A little bit of glue along the pine. Again, top edge, think to where the snow would fall, which is quite sweet. And again, along the branches. So yes, it is a kind of repeating yourself along the front of this card, but it's a nice way to really sort of think about placement. And just along areas of the branches there, we've got the branches in the background to pick out, and of course the snowfall on those berries to consider as well. A little bit on the leaves, and then we scoop and pour. So I'm pouring downwards so the glue is collecting in the tray, and then just giving that a little bit of a tap to flick the excess away. It's always nice, that little reveal as well, when you come to see after you've poured. Missed a few little bits there of the berries, a little bit of snowfall on the berries, so just going in and adding those. Okay, and now making sure I get rid of the excess, just taking a look and thinking, okay, yeah, I'm happy with how that's been picked out, but something that's quite fun to do is grab your glue applicator, get it nice and loaded with glue, and go along and create little circles in the background. So all we're doing is just placing that glue down into little dots, if you like, on the background that we have printed. So all the way around, just like so. This then really draws the background into your design as well, because when we pour the glitter and tap, you get this sense of little snowfall. Got little sparkles coming from the snow itself that you've added. And finally, let's not forget the foreground. Let's come in and just in those drifts, again, following the lowlights and the highlights laid down by the artwork itself. Just pick out areas. Don't go too mad at this point, just areas whereby the glitter or snow if you like, would have built up. So again, along the edges of the trunks and the stumps and things like that, and the logs, just kind of dragging, rather than using it as a dot like we did for the snowfall in the sky. This is kind of just dragging the glue along the background to make kind of drifts, snow drifts in the background there. A little bit of glue, a little bit of glitter, scooping that on, trying to keep it within my glitter station here. Tapping away the excess, and there you've got, move that out to one side, a finished card with lots of glittery elements on it as well. Really, truly Christmassy feel to it. You've got a little snowfall in the sky, that glitter on the birds themselves. Just look at that glinting. Little glints all the way along the back there of the bird and in the sky. Just so sweet. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That's so cute. Look at it. It just makes you so happy. And of course, look to your other Christmas collections as well. Perhaps this is a little technique you want to be including on those. Just lifting those highlights, think about the snowfall in the background, look to your scenes as well, and you can be creating wonderful little Christmas cards just like this with our beautiful Festive Friends die collection from 2 Red Robins. Thank you very much for joining me today. I can't wait to see you next time. In the meantime, do take care, stay safe, and do check out our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe for even more educational content. Thank you.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all of our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.